Welcome to That1 Podcast. If you're ready to break free from the ordinary, this is where real stories of real game changers come to life. Are you ready to be that one? We're here on That1 Podcast. It's your boy C-Rock here. I'm with Staci Shifflett, and we're going to find out what makes her that one and also just kind of dive into her story. Staci, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mike. Good to be here.
Yeah, so we're just talking about, we're in the mid-Atlantic right now and we're supposed to get a snowstorm this weekend. And we're like, oh man, we don't like snow. I had to buy a new snow shovel and all this other stuff. You got a place in Florida, so you're used to that nice weather. And
I am. We just looked. It's going to be 82 degrees there.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, I'm actually heading to Florida in a couple weeks, and so I'll get out of it. Thank God, if it sticks around. But so anyway, Staci, we talked and met, a while back in the fall, and I just loved, first of all, your energy. I loved what you've been working on and what you've accomplished. You're the founder of Modern Consciousness and the author of Treasure Map to Joy. You've been a part of major initiatives that have been across many industries, and including a $50 million technology acquisition with no personal investment of your own, which is amazing. And but actually, let's dive into that part right there. What was that? That's pretty impressive.
It was a wild ride. That was me waking up one morning. I had been in that space for quite a while. I was known as a subject matter expert in federal government procurement automation, and I knew the company. I woke up one morning and I went, I think I want to try to buy that company, having absolutely no idea what that might look like. But I didn't tell myself no. I called one of the owners, and as I didn't think it was so lucky. This is the funny thing. He said, well, we decided to sell the company and we've listed it with a broker. And I was like, oh. But you know what? I had never done this before. I have no M&A experience. I'm self-taught, right? I never graduated college even. And so I pursued it. I didn't tell myself I couldn't do it. I called the broker. I pulled somebody in to help me that did have a little bit of experience with mergers and acquisitions, and he had his MBA and whatnot. And we put the pitch deck together. He knew some about the process. I knew all about the company. I knew all about the technology space. And it took 9 months of pushing that rock uphill. And we did it. And we got Carlyle to do the investment. Everybody that saw it wanted in, right? It was good. We did a good job. We put it together. It was a great company. And they called me a few names along the way, mostly cashless investor and things like that. Thought I was pretty much crazy, right? Because who does this? But I never believed I couldn't. So I was that one that believed I could, and did it. Yeah. It was a pretty amazing story.
Yeah. And so what is it? A government procuring technology? What was it? Procurement technology?
It automated federal government. Yeah. Automated federal government acquisition and procurement processes across the board, all of their contracting processes. And okay, so gotcha. As a subject matter in that field, yeah, I would be the one.
And why did they want to sell it?
Oh, they were all in their 80s. Yeah, the guys, I knew they were all octogenarians except for the one. And he's the one I called. He was in his 70s. And I guess they had just had enough, and they had decided they wanted to sell. But I didn't know that when I called.
And how did you know about the company?
I used to work for them. At one point, I worked for them, and I had kept in touch with people at the company. And again, it's a small space, and I was a recognized leader in that space. So I just made the phone call. I had the idea. I literally woke up and said, I think I need to buy this company. Made the call, and the rest is history.
And were you an operator? Like, did you go to operate it, or did you find an operator?
No, we kept the management team. The gentleman that I pulled in to do the deal with me, he took on a role, right? He took on was he maybe the COO role? I was made the vice president of services. So we got very good employment contracts and, a sweat equity deal, right? So when they flipped the company in 5 years, I took my money and got out.
Gotcha. Okay. So and how long ago was that?
Let's see. I think we bought it in 2005, sold it in 2010. And then I
Okay.
took proceeds from that and started a construction company in Washington, D.C.
Get out. So okay. Was that your first exit?
Yes. Yes, my first entrance and exit. Yes.
Okay. And so was it life-changing money? I don't want to get into the specifics, but was it
Yeah, it's
life-changing money
life-changing.
where you were like,
Yes.
okay. So the reason I asked that is because during that period afterwards, I talked to a lot of people that have had exits. And there's a period of time there where they go through an identity crisis in a way. Now you were only in it for 5 years, so it may not have hit you as bad, but did you go in through like a moment where you were like, what's next? And you felt like lost, or what was that like after the exit?
I really didn't because it was time to leave. For me, it was time to leave. And I'll give you just a little bit of backstory. Um, After the acquisition, when we sat down with the CEO that the investment company brought in, right? So our first big meeting, myself and the partner that I brought in to help me do the deal, and the CEO lays out the organization chart, and I'm looking at the chart, and I'm like, my name's not on there. And he literally looked at me and was like, yeah, I don't know what to do with you, right? Because I'm not, I didn't, I didn't have an MBA. I didn't have my college degree. I didn't have all these things that he valued very, very highly. And I looked at him and I was like, well, actually, you do know exactly what to do with me because I have an employment contract and you know where I belong on that organization chart. And quite frankly, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me because all of this was my idea. And I got up and left the meeting. And the gentleman that I had pulled in to do the deal with me followed me out and said, you can't do this. You can't speak to him this way. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, he's our new boss. And I said, you know what? How would you feel had he left you off the organization chart, right? And oh, by the way, I would have had your back had he done that to you. So, anyway, going in for about 3 years, things went really, really well. I'd probably more than doubled the services. I wrote all their award, multi-million dollar proposals that we won, so on and so forth, and would go in and get these big projects off the ground and manage everything and all the integration with the federal government financial systems and all this stuff. And then I would go out and go to the next one. But I ended up not being particularly happy with the way I was being treated. So when the opportunity came to leave, I took it. And they did ask me to stay. They wanted a cohesive management team in the transition, and they wanted to present a cohesive management team during the acquisition process, right, of another the other company from them selling. And I just said, hey guys, you probably should have thought about this 2 years ago. So, I just was out. So it falls
So
into
so
my.
you did get added to the org. You did get added to the org chart.
Oh yeah, I had a contract. Yes, I got added, and I did a great job, and we
Yeah,
rock and
yeah,
rolled for a few
yeah,
years. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, by the way, there's a
It's
little
an
bit of
unusual
delay, so I apologize
story.
if I'm speaking over you. All right. So then you go into starting a construction company. Did you have any background in construction?
I did not. I was married at the time. My ex-husband did. He had a framing company. And he said to me, you ought to go start a framing company in Washington, D.C. that has a particular certification, right? Where we certified business enterprise is what it's called. I wasn't trading on woman owned or any of that. And the requirements for that is hiring the what the DC government really called the difficult to employ or the unemployable. But anyway, I got my certification. The way it was explained to me was that it was a pass through, and it's not a pass through. So I did everything by the book. And yeah, so my ex-husband, I had him behind me for the first job that we got for one of the big builders here in the DC metro area. So they felt confident with that. Within a year and a half, maybe, I guess, we split. And yeah, the rest was all based on our performance as a company. I had no idea. I hired a guy to run the place for me, and I truly was an owner, not an operator. I was strategy and in the big business conversations, and if we had difficulty with a particular general contractor, I would go to those meetings and get things squared away. But yes, I ran that company for 10 years, and then I just quietly exited. I could not get it sold because nobody wanted to deal with the DC government, which I couldn't blame them. That's one of the reasons I wanted out. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what came into like creating this modern consciousness, and what is modern consciousness? Like, can you explain that?
Yeah, modern consciousness is a mission-driven business. And after my divorce in 2012, I set about on a very deep personal development journey. And I learned a lot and started meditating and doing things that, I had not done in my previous life. But anyway, it's another one of those concepts that came into me, and it came in very powerfully, along with defining the different aspects of modern consciousness and all of this information. And it just kept coming in, and I kept collecting it, and I kept looking at the sky and saying, I am not your girl, right? I am not the one to teach people how to live consciously in our modern world, right? I didn't know if I wanted another company or what have you. The idea would not leave me alone, even though I resisted it for about 2 years. And I finally surrendered and said, okay, fine. And here I am.
And so what is it exactly though? Like, what are you doing on a daily basis with this business?
Well, I have a couple of programs. I have a one-on-one coaching program called Elevate Your Life that is very much rooted in a very practical way to elevate your life, I guess I would say. So what I've done is I have taken, all of my life experiences, which are many. I have a couple of gifts, right? I'm a very natural analyst and a good project manager. I'm very good at seeing the big picture way up high and the details at the same time. So I have taken all of these talents, I suppose, that have served me very, very well in my career, combined that with all that I have learned, both through my own collected wisdom, right, and all of the teachings through the deep dive I did in personal development, and have created a program that helped people practically get where they want to go. I've seen so many people come out of personal development seminars and programs, and you've probably been there. We have epiphanies and, oh, wow, I never thought of it that way. And our perspectives are broadened, and we're going to go home and we're going to change 43 things about our life. And that doesn't work. So with my one-on-one clients, we go through the entire program, and we really chart your treasure map to joy. So I help them see patterns, and we try to figure out together, because I truly do believe people have the answers within. I'm just very good at helping them get that information out of themselves. And we chart a path forward that's both effective and efficient, and it works.
And so who are the type of people that you work with? Like, what does that ideal client look like?
Oh gosh, mostly women. I love to work with people that have had some personal development, that have done some personal development work, and I have seen so many that get frustrated, as I said, because they just it's very difficult to translate what you're learning into practical actions and right action in your life, right? And a lot of people try to solve the wrong problems, um, try to change too many things at once, which is a recipe for failure. So that's pretty much what I do. And what I have done recently is taken the first two modules of that program and packaged them into what I'm calling the clarity sequence, um, because I believe that personal development and coaching should be available more broadly, right? Some of it can be very, very expensive, and package those into a clarity sequence that helps you see very clearly where you are today, which is often missed by a lot of people because it's just like a GPS. You have to know where you're at and where you want to go in order to chart a path forward. So that program has recently launched by itself. You can do it with me. It's even, you can do it yourself. All the questions are there. I'm really, really good at asking questions.
Yeah, that's a huge part is asking the right questions and then having people to actually be able to be aware of themselves, self-aware, and being able to face that. Because there's so much denial that goes on, right?
There
And
is.
I'm sure
And,
you've seen that, right? And yeah.
yeah, you got to love yourself through it, right? What did somebody say to me the other day? Well, how do you get people, that's a hard journey. And it's like, well, I don't know. Sometimes it's harder if you keep doing what you're doing and you're unhappy, right? And you just build up more resentment and more unhappiness, and you can't figure out how you're ever going to dig yourself out of that hole. So, that's what I help people do in a very enlightening way. I hold space for them. A lot of it is their journey because they journal. I have a lot of questions and help them to think in different ways, and then help them put the patterns together. And I do things a little bit differently when we're talking about aspirations because so often we're focused on external achievements. And I really root into how do you want to feel, right? So we have to have all the areas of our lives working together. If we have a problem in one area, you probably have it in another. It's just disguised, it's showing up differently. And personal life isn't so different from business in some ways because let's say you're in that season of your life where you're really driven on building that career. Well, don't you want all the stakeholders, your families, your partner, whoever, everybody needs to be in on that vision and have a role in that vision in order for it to work. So that's how I approach things. I approach things in their totality, right? All of the rich dimensions of your lives and what's working here and what's not, and which area is supporting and which isn't.
Yeah. And are a lot of these people entrepreneurs or founders that you're working with?
Yes. Yes. Often.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can relate
Yeah.
to that. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Staci,
I'm
your
just kind of a
journey.
down to
Let's
earth
talk about
girl,
yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about your journey from the beginning. Where did you come from? What's your story?
Oh, I came from a middle class family. I'm an only child. I had parents that stayed married for for the long haul. And I always I never realized what it was until later in life. I always had a very strong value of self-actualization, right? Because I have always made my own way and sort of figured things out myself and lived life out loud, much to the chagrin of my parents on occasion. But I have, I call myself a proficient student of life. And I have had many, many, many experiences. I've had extreme highs, I've had extreme lows. My first son died, the divorce, but just I've seen and experienced a lot. So I bring that into everything I do, and I know that people can change because I see the difference that it makes in my life. All of the work that I have done and the awareness and the intentionality I bring to what I do on a daily basis, right? It's a skill that is just invaluable because it supports you through everything. And I can't stress that enough. It
Yeah.
supports you through everything, and you know that.
Yeah. And when you go through the darkest times and the toughest times, what have you found that really works to get you through that? Because obviously it's not always going to be the last time you go through a tough time, right?
Yeah, I think it's coming back and you have to be grateful. You have to find gratitude in your situation. My home flooded on Siesta Key in 2024 with the back-to-back hurricanes, right? I call them, Milton the Menace and that bitch Helene. Right? So I was displaced from my home for 9 months. Um, but I leaned into gratitude. I was still much more I was much more fortunate than many, many people. I ended up with just a couple of inches of water in the house. I didn't have to wait for insurance money to start repairs. As a matter of fact, I had just finished a large repair and they had just laid new wood floors throughout my whole first level when
Oh,
the flood hit. And there's a couple of ways that you can react to that. You can be really pissed off about it and upset and angry, or you just move forward as best you can, right? So I literally was like, okay, well, I guess at least we know what floor to replace, right? We know what the flooring is. So that was a good start because I have the same floor through my whole house. I had a contractor in my house finishing up the job at that time, so I had first dibs on him to repair my home. I wasn't battling to get these resources that other people were. I could start repairs. I was financially able to start repairs right away. I had much, much less water in my home than a lot of people. I had a second home in Virginia that I could come stay in. So instead of stacking all the aggravation, I stacked the gratitude. And granted, that's a little bit harder to do sometimes, right? That was a physical asset. That's a little harder to do when you lose something like a marriage, right? There's more to work through in that. But there still is always some gratitude to come back to and hold on to, and do that at least a little bit each day, right? And then it gets a little easier and a little easier.
so it's crucial to keep going. Just keep going, because the more every day that passes, you're moving in the direction of things getting better, right?
Yes,
But
and I mean,
Staci, I got to ask you on the
Mhm.
gratitude thing. It's easy to say, yeah, I'm grateful for this, and I'm pointing out different things that I'm aware of and grateful. But the actual feeling of gratitude is something that's, when you're going through that tough time, it's not easy to feel it. So what do you do? Do you just say it and be aware of it until the feeling comes?
For me, yes. I mean, I've got where I can pretty much feel it. I mean, I knew how much I had to be grateful for in the flooding situation, for example. Um, did I grieve some? Yes, it was disruptive. It was expensive. Siesta Key was just damaged so much, and you have so much compassion for other people. So it doesn't mean you don't grieve. It doesn't mean you don't process the other emotions. I won't necessarily call them negative emotions. You process all the emotions and you move through them. The thing is to not get stuck there.
Okay, so Staci, we had a little technical difficulties, but we're back, and we were just wrapping up where you were talking about what happened in Florida to your house there, and the gratitude and being able to still feel gratitude despite the heartache that happens when you go through something difficult. And my pastor the other day in church said it could be worse. You can always say it could be worse. And you were talking about how some people, lost everything, or they didn't have the money to replace until the insurance came, or look at the people in LA with the fires. Like they're not even if they have the insurance, they can't build because the Coastal Commission, I think it's called, won't let them build unless
Yeah.
they put like another millions and millions of dollars into it,
Right.
So
In North Carolina, that's what I
perspective.
just kept telling myself, at least my house didn't slide down a hill and float down the river, and most
Yeah.
people in Sarasota were leaning into that sort of gratitude, right? That it could be worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I also wanted to touch on the loss that you had in your family. And if you can provide some tools for exercises or thoughts for people to have as they lose loved ones that are close and sudden, or even over time, somebody might have a disease, it's slow, whatever, but they lose someone, and you went through that. And if you could mind some of the things you've learned to carry yourself on.
Yeah, I'm happy to share the experience. I lost my first son. Everything was fine until it wasn't. And he had some birth defects when he was born. He was 7.5 weeks early, so he never came home from NICU. He lived his first month, his only month in the hospital. And the interesting thing is, all the doctors there said, "Oh, he'll be fine. He'll be playing football." Nobody really prepared me for the worst, and I'm a pretty positive thinker, so I was believing them and pretty well thought that things would turn out well, and they did not. They lost him in open heart surgery. And when you lose a child, I mean, for me, I truly went to hell. It is not a good place to be. The grief was overwhelming, and you get through each day that the best way that you can. And it is absolutely, I've lost both my parents since, as well as some other people. And it's so very important to process grief, and to process it through us. And, what I was grateful for during that time was I had support. I was married at the time. I had my ex-husband's support at the time. My parents, my family was there. But I will tell you the one thing that made the biggest difference for me, and I wasn't as adept at mindset and, personal development and everything that I am now way back then. It was a number of years ago. So my doctor suggested that I go to a group session for people that had lost their children. And I went to that. I only went to one. And I will never forget, because there was a gentleman that was in there, and it was a group of families that had lost children of different ages and for all different reasons, right? And there was a gentleman in there that got up to talk, and his wife was not with him. And he told us that it had been 5 years since the death of their daughter, and she could still not leave the house to go to the grocery store. And I understood that. I've got goosebumps telling you this. Even though it was decades ago, I understood that so strongly, because I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to go back to work. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to do anything. I was just totally engulfed in grief, which is natural. But that's kind of what registered for me there was, I don't want to stay here, right? I don't want to be the person. I can understand it, and I have the utmost compassion for them, but I did not want to be the person that in 5 years I was still unable to leave my home to grocery shop or do anything else. And I think, we can stay, I'm going to call it a victim mindset, because I think people will realize what that means, when we have these bad things happen to us. But we all suffer loss. It's part of life, and we lose people that are close to us through death, or a relationship imploding, or whatever it is. But we still have the choice to move forward. Now we do that in our own timeline. We process grief differently. But I think that was the most profound thing that I learned, and when I was kind of like, okay, somehow I need to get through this, because I didn't want to be that person. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You gotta give yourself grace and time to go through the grieving process. It's a natural thing. Your nervous system's affected. But it's like, at some point you got to make a decision. Like, okay, am I gonna live the rest of my life feeling like this, or not go on at all? People make those decisions, unfortunately, too. Or what agency do I have now to make the best of this situation and use it? Right.
Yeah.
No,
Some other things that I leaned into. I'm sorry, just one more thing something else that I leaned into that I told myself, because, we always try to rationalize and do things. But one of the things that I told myself after coming out of that meeting as well was, perhaps, and I could have felt robbed for not having years of memories with that child, but I didn't let myself go there. right? I thought, okay, maybe it will be a little bit easier for me because I didn't have years of memories.
Ooh.
I didn't I didn't remember the kid playing in the backyard or taking care of him in the nursery or any of those things. So um, it's just important how we frame things and think things through and feel our ways through it and grab onto something that will help you float, right, in the storm of that grief.
Yeah, and not to compare this at all, but like I have two children, one's 19, one's 13, and it goes so quick. And
Oh, so
sometimes,
fast.
around the birthday, my wife will post one of those posts that has sad music behind it, and it shows the kids from when they were babies on up and all that. And I'd start to go through all that, and it hurts so bad, man. My heart hurts so bad. I'm so thankful that, I have them. But like, man, it's like, oh man, it's not the same person almost. Like my kids now, my son was a cute little boy, and now he's this grown man, 19 years old. He's bigger than me. He's got facial
Yeah.
hair. It's like it's not the same person. So you kind of, again, not to compare,
No,
but
I get that.
you kind of lose that person.
Hmm.
and and I just think back of all the times I was working so much back in the day, and um, I don't know. Yeah, I see what you're saying though. That's a different. Yeah, makes sense. Well,
Yeah.
I want to thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that with us, Staci.
Oh, sure, sure. I've shared it on many podcasts actually. I hope it benefits people that hear it. I hope there's somebody that needs to hear it heard it and that it helps them.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your time today too. Where can people go deeper with you and learn more about what you're doing?
My website is probably the best place, modernconsciousness.com. And, you can access my social via there. You can get a hold of me via email. You can schedule time to talk. You can look at my program. I have some free resources that are available for folks, and including a self-sabotage quiz and a trigger workbook, right? Calm those emotional triggers. If one piece of advice, calm those emotional triggers. It is absolutely life-changing. But yeah, that's the best place to go.
Yeah, that is so important. I can tell you, like, I consistently still to this day, no matter, even though I put all this work in on myself, I still have the thing sometimes where if we have a bad week or bad month or whatever the case is, or when I ended the mortgage business where we were making millions and then started something from scratch and the money stopped coming in, tying that to my worth, like, I feel like I was a certain level, and then you're like, I'm going on podcasts after that, Staci, talking about things I learned in business and how to scale a business, this and that. And here I'm back to where, like, I feel like I'm not really back to where I started, but I felt like financially, money coming in wise, I was just like, and it hits your worth if you let it. So there's a lot of work to do there. So I love
There is a lot
that
of
you have
work.
that for people. They need it.
Yeah, being aware. You just have to be aware and redirect yourself and lean into it and say, oh, and then step out of it and redirect and head in the direction that you want to go in.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today and sharing. We appreciate it. Hang tight while I wrap this up. Folks, that's this episode of That1 Podcast with your boy C-Rock here and Staci Shifflett. One thing I want to make sure everybody remembers to do is hit the subscribe, follow button at the top of your favorite podcast platform and keep coming back. And until next time, be that one.